Okay, great. Hello, my name's Michelle Ansell, Managing Partner at Douglas Jackson, and today in the Impact Room, I'm delighted to be joined by Kelly Kuhn. Kelly's a strategic advisor and independent non-executive director who has had a successful board career with global companies across the travel, food and professional services industry across B2B and B2C. So Kelly, hi, welcome. Lovely to see you.
Thank you so much, Michelle. So excited to be with you today and to chat a bit about my experiences.
Yeah, great. Well, we're looking forward to hearing a lot more. So, Kelly, let's kick off. What would be your elevator pitch?
You know, it's a wonderful question, and I spent a lot of time as I made my shift from my executive career to an advisory and non-executive director, and this is such an important component, I think, of that transition. I would describe myself as an experienced non-executive director and advisor with financial prowess and global commercial expertise to help guide companies through strategic transformational change, while helping them also deliver on their mission, values, and their core purpose. As a senior executive, as well as now a non-executive director, I've consistently delivered on company firsts in highly complex, as you mentioned, global matrixed organizations. And I am now currently focused on organizations that are going through transformation, user experience, digital, and global in scope, with growth-minded and people-minded focus.
Excellent. And the world is changing so much, isn't it, Kelly? There's so much more to be incorporated now than there perhaps was in the future. Fantastic. So you've obviously established a successful NED career and a board advisory portfolio. So what do you see as the key components to being an effective NED and board advisor?
Well, it's been a wonderful transition, and I've learned so much throughout the process. I was fortunate enough early in my career, when I was living in the United States, to be invited and joined and served on a public company board for 9 years. And I learned from an extraordinary, advanced, sophisticated board who really helped define what high performance governance was. So I was able to learn very early in my career, and I've really, I hope, applied that. And I think the first learning I would say is truly knowing the difference between being a senior executive and a board member. And of course, many of the same skills come to play: listening, and in fact, doing more listening than speaking, especially important. And then knowing where that line is from making decisions and being responsible to giving advice, giving guidance, thinking about strategy long term, and truly engaging when your senior executives within the company ask you to engage. And so it really is about listening and giving advice, but not being the one making the decisions.
Really great points, isn't it? And I know we spoke in previous conversations about, good and bad boards and good and bad practice, but some fantastic points there. So on the other foot, I mean, what do you think a board and a chair should consider to get the best out of their advisors and non-exec directors?
Well, again, I've been so blessed in the two boards that I sit on today. In both cases, the chairs and the nominating committee members, when they were recruiting, and the boards now very generally, are super inclusive. And I was chosen specifically, I think, because of my global scope, commercial, as well as having lived all over the world. And so having the experience of living and leading in multiple cultures and geographies. And so in both cases, these boards were very specific in their brief, looking for a set of experiences and a voice at the table that they didn't necessarily have at the board. And so truly building an inclusive environment, and this is something that crosses over beautifully, I think, from senior executives to board roles, which is an inclusive environment celebrates diverse opinions at the table. And, having a diverse slate is one thing, but having an inclusive environment then takes it to the next level, where healthy debate is a good thing. And hoping then from there comes a new focus, a new strategy, a new direction forward that included everyone's opinions and everyone's experiences. And I again, as I said, I'm super blessed that both of these boards and CWT, which I still am an advisor for, and the McChrystal Group. McChrystal Group brought me on specifically because I brought a set of skills that they are just now growing from a go-to-market strategy value proposition. And so again, really inviting new points of view has been really the hallmark, I think, of successful boards, successful opportunities for chairs to look as they grow or change their boards.
Yeah, and as you say, I think the board advisory market is changing quite a lot because companies are having to factor in so many different things, aren't they? And there's always been that leaning to sort of hiring people with exactly the same sort of skills or experience, isn't there? But as you say, it just doesn't bring that diversity of opinion. And sometimes you can offer a fresh perspective, fresh pair of eyes, and that's exactly what some businesses want, especially if they want to transform, as you've mentioned already.
Well, right. And indeed, the challenges of the past, some still exist, but the challenges of our shared future are very different. And so in a few conversations I've had recently about board opportunities, it has truly been about a board and a chair thinking about succession planning. And when the opportunity comes for a new non-executive director to be appointed, really thinking about the challenges of the future rather than sort of the same voice and same experiences from the past, which I think, again, is very progressive and has been really refreshing.
Yeah, excellent. So what do you see as some of the main challenges or opportunities facing organisations then at the moment, Kelly?
Well, it certainly is an interesting time, isn't it? And just the last few days here in the United Kingdom with climate change and the extreme heat, certainly companies need to think about their role in ESG programs, and it's becoming an important topic of conversation both in the boardroom and for senior executives and for shareholders. These are now, shareholders, investors are making decisions about where they want to invest their capital based on the strategy around ESG. So number one, I would say a clearly defined ESG strategy and showing momentum toward those key opportunities. Recently, lots of conversations about customer voice and the customer intimacy and opinion in decision-making and strategy discussions. Everyone through COVID, companies generally being very inward focused. Everyone needed to be to, survive and thrive. Now an opportunity to really look to the outside market, taking in a customer voice in decision-making and strategic direction setting. I would also say, and sort of tied to that, is value proposition. And this is the value proposition for employees, and I'll come on to that in a minute, for shareholders and for customers. This is a value proposition opportunity to really set a differentiated strategy for the future. I think that this is such a big chance for companies to really differentiate. Security, of course, and duty of care and the responsibility that companies and boards have, again, for their employees, for their customers and their shareholders. And COVID brought a whole new meaning to what duty of care truly is. And then the cyber risk that so many companies have had around the world about protecting data, protecting systems. The social media impact, I'm not sure a lot of companies really think about, but false information has a severe impact, I think, on decision-making and on how employees feel about their company and life in general. So I think it's an opportunity to be thoughtful about the impact that social media has on us as a society, really. Technology, digital transformation, how that impacts both the user and a company and their effectiveness and efficiency for the future. And of course, we all have to think about that with supply chain challenges, energy challenges, et cetera. And then the last thing I would say, and this is always a personal focus and priority for me in the work that I'm doing with the boards I serve on, and that is around the employee value proposition and talent. Everyone talks about the war for talent. I don't know that I would say it's a war, but it certainly is an environment that many companies have never experienced before. So focusing on retention of talent as well as attracting talent. And that starts with this value proposition for an employee and how they can show up at work in a fair, equitable environment, one that is diverse, one that is inclusive, where they're able to bring their entire life experiences to bear when they come to work. And, you know, both for senior executives and for boards, often now this talent challenge is hindering growth, hindering expansion, hindering new ways of operating. And so really thinking about talent at every level of an organization, going through the proper assessment of development and learning opportunities, because employees of the future are going to want to know, one, what your company stands for, what your purpose is, what kind of culture they are coming into, as well as what their development, learning, and opportunities for growth are. Young people especially, but all ages really. Everyone's super ambitious and they want to know how a company is going to help them advance. So all of these really important, but this focus, I think a lot of things flow from extraordinary talent in the right positions at the right time.
Yeah, it's amazing because when you're hearing you talk about all that, you're thinking, gosh, such a complex, so many difficult challenges. Yet I think the common theme, just when you're sort of closing off that that question response, then Kelly, is, you know, is if you can have that really compelling value proposition for, as you say, your investors, your customers, and your employees, that can all come together in that one common area, can't it? An element, and that brings the company together. But they do need to be a lot more vocal, a lot more open, a lot more transparent about that, and businesses aren't used to that, are they? And certainly some leaders aren't at all.
That's exactly right. I mean, this notion of now being fully transparent, some of it coming in the regulatory environment where reporting is now required on many subjects, but I think it's just the right thing to do. And many people would say, my dad always said, doing the right thing is never wrong. And so it is quite simple to make decisions then with that kind of a North Star guide decision making. And as I said, I'm super blessed that in my advisory and board work, I'm just surrounded by, one, really smart people, open-minded people, and those who are truly focused on making a positive impact, taking the responsibility that these companies have in how they approach society and the environment and the business market, and also having a lot of fun along the way, which I think is also really important, considering, you know, the last few years we've all been through.
Absolutely. Excellent. Thank you. So, I mean, we're approached by a number of executive level leaders who would like to establish a portfolio career. What advice would you give someone to get started?
Well, one of my mantras has always been, get really comfortable being uncomfortable, because starting the journey is hard. And really thinking hard. And I was given this great advice when I stepped out of my executive career and as I was planning what to do next. And a friend and colleague said, be sure that moving toward a portfolio career of advisory and non-exec is what you want versus another executive role. So number one, I would, you know, my first bit of advice would be make sure that this is the direction you want to go, that you're not still hungry for the decision making and the influence that an executive has within an organization, and that you need to now use those experiences in a different way. The next bit of advice, I think, would be do not be afraid to use your network. You've probably, as an executive, you know, never asked for help along the way, that you've, you know, really been quite independent in a successful executive career. Now is the time to go back and really look at that network. I have found, though, as well, certainly in the UK and in Europe, looking for non-executive director opportunities, most of them come through professional executive search firms like yours, because there is far more turnover because of required change on boards in the UK and in Europe. It's a different, very professionally managed board brief and process for recruitment of new board members. I think that chairs work super effectively with their executive search partners in the board practices around this area. In the United States, if you were someone looking for a board opportunity, it is still very much a network, working your network environment. I do think it's changing. I think the non-executive board practices at the executive search firms are getting more involved now, but it is still very much a who you know. And there's less turnover on boards in the United States,
Right.
private and public. Many people sit on boards for, decades. Again, I think that's changing. I think the NASDAQ's requirement of diverse candidates on their boards to be listed is a super powerful statement, step in the right direction. Some of the states are passing legislation as well. But again, not being afraid to use your network. I'm part of several women's networks around the world, which have been super important for me. One, to be connected and to learn, but also to use those networks to be introduced to lots of people. And then reaching back out to, the mentors and the folks who've made a difference in my career, because many of them also sit on boards. So when they're asked for board candidate recommendations, really important to be at the top of their list as well, especially other women. Many women are, full. They're not almost overboarded because they keep many networks and executive search firms come back to the same well, so to speak. And so when other women in your network recommend you, it's a really wonderful opportunity, to be in the conversation. So network, making sure that you have a profile for both your executive career and your NED opportunity, because they are different, and seek professional help in that area if you need. I did. Recreating 30 plus years of my career was a bit challenging when I first started, and understanding the difference around governance and advisory versus the executive career was a really great step for me when I first began.
Excellent. Great advice there. Thank you, Kelly. So looking back at your career, who would you like to thank that helped mentor or helped you move your career forward?
Gosh, I've been so fortunate. I would say first, although my father would never see this on social media, I would say to my father, because he just believed that anything was possible. And he's in fact the one that taught me to be comfortable being uncomfortable, and has often said, the rear view mirror is small and the windshield of your vehicle is large, because looking forward is the only thing to do. Such incredible advice for me growing up and through my career. I've had wonderful business mentors. I'll name a couple. The late Bob Griffith, who was the chief financial officer at Navigant. He kept pushing me into positions and roles that I wasn't ready for, really expanding my learning and my opportunities. Jack O'Neill, who was the president of North America for CWT, again, just creating an environment for me to be successful, to expand my opportunities. At the same time, Hubert Joly, who many folks will know. Hubert was the CEO of Carlson and CWT, and Hubert has been an extraordinary mentor, friend, and role model, really. He once called me a turtle. And I remember thinking, oh my, I'm not sure what that means. Am I slow? And he said, no, the turtle only makes progress when it sticks its neck out.
Wow.
And he was referring to me when I had accepted the opportunity to move to Singapore. Again, jumping into the deep end of the pool in an environment where I felt unqualified, but quickly got comfortable in that uncomfortable scenario. I would also say our former CEO, Kurt Eckert, again, asking me to lead and build an organization that didn't exist before. So I've had wonderful male allyship, sponsorship, mentorship, each step of the way along in my career, and have just been so fortunate.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you very much. Well, lovely to meet you again, Kelly. Thank you for sharing your wisdom today. It's been enjoyable and great to meet you. So thanks very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.